Alan, it's time. Alan, it's time. We're talking about Dune Part 3. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what will be happening in Dune Part 3. And we're going to go through what some of our predictions are for Dune Part 3. So let's do that. Should we do that, or should we do what you had?
It should be. It will be more your predictions of what Dune Part 3 will be.
Right. Okay, so there is a script that currently exists that Denis Villeneuve has written that is based on the follow-up novel to Dune, the book Dune. When Frank Herbert wrote the book Dune, he was disappointed that some of the themes that he was trying to explore were not fully understood by readers. They saw Dune, the first Dune book, as a white savior story. That's not what he was trying to say. The first Dune book came out in 1965, and Frank Herbert was trying to make a comment on the current political climate, not overtly, but he was not a fan of JFK as a president. He feels that JFK got America involved in Vietnam, and America since then has been involved in many wars around the globe. And what Dune is supposed to be is a warning about the dangers of a charismatic leader. I feel that Dune Part 2 really explores this in a meaningful way, where you see a turn after Paul takes the water of life. He's full in on him being this messianic leader, leading the Fremen into a holy war that will take place across the galaxy. We are going to be getting into some potential spoilers for Dune Part 3. So if you do not want to have Dune Part 3 ruined for you, or some of the big things that will happen in Dune Part 3, bow out now. Here's your warning. But actually, I'm going to guess
mute your stream and keep it on.
Yeah. Mute the stream, mute the audio, but keep watching. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, don't turn this off.
The setting for Dune Part 3, Dune Part 3. The setting for Dune Messiah, which I assume will be the template, although, Denis Villeneuve changed things in Dune. He condensed the timeline from about 3 years to 6 months-ish, 6-7 months. There's no telling how he may make changes for Dune Messiah or Dune Part 3. But it's effectively a novella. It's like an epilogue, because what Frank Herbert wanted to do was hammer home more of the themes of what he intended Dune to be, which were, he felt, misinterpreted by the audience. What happens in Dune Messiah? Effectively this. It's more than it's like, maybe 15 years later? It takes place, Paul Atreides is now in his 30s. Alia is now a grown, very young woman. And while she may have experienced intimacy in her mind and her collective memory from previous Bene Gesserit, she is really looking to have some intimacy in her life, in real life. From what we've seen, it appears as if Anya Taylor-Joy will play Paul Muad'Dib Atreides' sister in the film, Alia. And the other pieces of the puzzle that are here is there's been a holy war, billions of people have been wiped out, and it's something that Paul could not stop from happening. Yet he feels obviously responsible. Princess Irulan is wife in name only, and they're looking to get an heir, right? They need an heir. And Chani, of course, Paul is intimate with Chani. Chani is different in the books than in the films. So I don't know how this is going to change things. That is the biggest change. And to me, it's the biggest flaw of Dune Part 2 is the fact that they changed her character so much because she's all in on Paul. This adds a completely different wrinkle where I suspect, and this is just a guess, that in Dune Part 3, Chaney will actually be the one that will be trying to take Paul down. Forces of the Bene Gesserit, along with the Spacing Guild. So I believe we're definitely going to see the Spacing Guild in Dune Part 3. You're going to see a third stage guild navigator. You're going to see members of the guild because the guild and the Bene Gesserit have basically feel that Paul has too much power and they want to take him down. And that's their goal. And how do they do that? They're tempting him with an old friend. Who comes back? Duncan Idaho as a Gola. And Gola is effectively kind of a clone with the memories of the old Duncan Idaho. So they bring back Duncan Idaho, Paul's friend from his childhood, friend and mentor from his childhood. He looked up to Duncan Idaho. Duncan basically was responsible in Dune Part 1 for saving Paul and Jessica. So they bring back Duncan Idaho in this form. What ends up happening? Well, there may be a little romantic interest from Aaliyah in Duncan Idaho. And this temptation, this ability to bring the form of someone back, even though it's not 100, it's called a Gola. It's like, I guess you could interpret that as a zombie. So then you have Duncan Idaho has returned and something happens. I'm not going to get into what the things that happened in the third act, but Paul is tempted with this Gola technology. Additionally, what happens, and this is really weird, and when it gets really weird, is Paul loses his eyes. There's an attack with a nuclear weapon, and Paul's eyes literally kind of melt. He loses his eyesight because of a nuclear weapon, an atomic weapon. What then ends up happening is really weird. And this is a lot like when I saw the third Matrix movie, Matrix Revolutions, like I'm thinking, oh, that's totally out of Dune. When Neo loses his eyes, but he can still see, right? That's what Paul has. So Paul, while he's lost his eyesight, because he can see the future because of spice addiction, he actually doesn't even need to see. He can walk perfectly. He sees that Stilgar is right next to him. And so that's what you're going to see happen to Paul. Paul has a fall, right? A fall from grace, because you see he's become too powerful and then forces align to take him down. This also will involve Chaney, but I don't know how they're going to change it because in the books, she's completely in love with Paul. So I believe that what will happen is because Dune Messiah is such a short book, it's almost like a novella or an epilogue. Dune is over 400 pages. Dune Messiah is like under 200 pages. It's a quick read, but a lot of stuff happens. And my suspicion is that what they may do, like the Sci-Fi Channel Dune series kind of almost skips over Dune Messiah and just goes right into Children of Dune. And the total running time of the Dune Sci-Fi Channel series is like 6 hours. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is just a little bit longer. We can double check the exact running time, which Alan is going to do right now. I'd like to know what the exact running time is of Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 combined, and then what the Dune miniseries running time is. You can find that out for me, Alan.
Yeah.
But I have a suspicion that what Denis Villeneuve has done, because he's kind of playing a little fast and loose with some of the big things. It's like as someone pointed out, it's like the Cliff Notes, and it's Denis Villeneuve's Dune, not Frank Herbert's Dune, right? And I think that's a fair assessment. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just his vision. Just like David Lynch's Dune 1984 is so David Lynch. And I actually miss kind of that weirdness. One of the things about the 1984 Dune that I've loved so much is the dream visions. If you see David Lynch's Eraserhead, he's so good at recreating in real life what the feeling of having a weird dream is like. And that's what David Lynch did so well in the 1984 Dune. I think that almost Denis Villeneuve's Dune could have used more of that weirdness in the visions of Paul, or when Jessica takes the water of life in Dune Part 2. But my feeling is with Dune Part 3, it's going to be some events from Children of Dune, Dune Messiah, but a change in the Chaney character. But that changes a lot because Chaney is even a bigger part of the Dune Messiah story, as there is now Irulan, Princess Irulan, has her motivations. Alia, Paul's sister, has her own desires. She is a young woman. I don't know how they're going to handle that. I think they're going to age her up. And one of the things that Denis Villeneuve has stated is that he would like to do some other movies, wait like 10 years, and then make Dune Part 3. Because by then, Timothée Chalamet will have aged. Timothée Chalamet looks pretty young. I mean, he could pass for, I don't know how old he is in real life. He definitely could pass for early 20s. But in Dune Messiah, Paul is an older man. Not old, but older. And the way that they leave his character, his fate, I think is poetic. And if it's handled this way, bad things happen to almost everyone. Bad things happen to everyone. There is accountability and a cost for the holy war that has been fought on in across the galaxy. So it's also possible, because Denis Villeneuve changed the ending of Dune somewhat. There's no running off immediately to a holy war, right? But perhaps he'll show some of the events that happened in between. So I can imagine an opening montage of Dune Part 3 that shows events from the Holy War and what happened across the galaxy on other planets, where billions of people have been wiped out, all because of Paul Atreides and the choices he made. So I don't know. I think that the changes that Denis Villeneuve made in Part 2 were setting up Dune Part 3. I'm not sure if I agree with all these changes. Everything I'm telling you is speculation based on what I know happens in the next Dune books. But based on the changes that Denis Villeneuve made, it's going to be a very different Dune Part 3. It's definitely not going to be accurate to Dune Messiah, but I think thematically it'll more than likely stick with those themes. Alan, what did you find out about the running times?
Okay, so the Dune Part 1 and 2 total runtime is 5 hours 20 minutes for both Part 1 and 2. The sci-fi series, all of them combined, 8 hours and 50 minutes.
Oh, okay, longer than I thought. Well, that's interesting. So I think 8 hours is probably what you need to just tell the first Dune. But
yeah, one thing, you describing Paul's journey makes me think that he's basically Anakin.
It's basically Anakin, and it's very biblical. When I read Dune Messiah, it felt very much like Jesus. It's sort of like the later years of Jesus that you never got to hear about.
Yeah, but,
right?
But Jesus didn't go power hungry or power mad like Paul goes.
I'm talking
I think that's the point. It's the idea of, he's, like Anakin, he's driven by revenge. He gains this new power, and he uses that power to not only exact revenge, but then that power kind of overtakes him, and he goes beyond what his original mission was to be. Well, and when I saw Dune: Children of God, that's
Children of Dune, Children of Dune
story.
Children of Dune.
Children of Dune. That's the Luke and Leia story, and it
is.
It kind of rounds off. It's the prophecy of the children undoing the evils of their father, basically.
Yeah. Well, look. He's already changed things in Dune Part 2 that will affect the story in Dune Part 3. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with these changes. I think changing Chaney as a character, the Alia, we never see Alia born. It worked for me. It did actually work for me in terms of like hearing the voice of his sister from the womb. that kind of worked, but it's going to be different. It's not going to be Dune Messiah, but he'll use ideas from Dune Messiah. But changing Chaney changes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That is a major change that I don't agree with. But what's interesting is I could tell, like, the final shot of Dune Part 2, there's a dream image where he sees Chaney and she's disfigured, potentially from a nuclear bomb or an atomic bomb. Her face is all like look like she has burns. That's playing into Part 3. Aaliyah, we see Anya Taylor-Joy as an older woman. That's Dune Part 3. He did so much setting up of Dune Part 3 and the Bene Gesserit series, which is supposed to be on Max, that these are some of the things that bothered me about Dune Part 2, is that there was so much setup for what's next, what's to come. Apparently, there already exists a script that he's working on. He does have a first draft of the script. Is he going to wait 10 years to make it? I don't think that Warner Brothers will let him wait 10 years. I think he'll make another movie in between, kind of like how Chris Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy. He went off and made another movie. He made, what did he make? Was it Inception? So, yeah. But, and effing Book points out that the Chani burns actually happened to Paul. Yes, that's correct. Paul gets burned and blinded. So that's from the, so then how is it? So then does he, to make that go away, does he replace himself in that situation so that he's the one that gets the burns to protect her? I don't know, but their relationship, I would have thought, see, this is what bothers me about Chaney and the way that she is in Dune Part 2 is she's emotionally immature.
Yeah, no, I saw it completely different. To me, Chaney was the character who had it all. She had the love of her life and bright future for her people. And to see it all go away when Paul takes on the Messiah role. And she realizes that she's about to lose everything for what she considers a lie.
Right.
Or a false story. And I think that's why she comes off as that scorned lover, and she comes off as that person who walks away and says she doesn't know who this person is anymore, because he makes a transformation in front of her eyes that she can't agree with.
Well, to wrap this up, we'll wrap up spoiler talk on this. We're going to go back to the regular show, but I think it's going to be very different. If you want to read Dune Messiah to see what happens, I think that some of those ideas are going to be used, but so much was changed in Dune Part 2. It's going to affect what the movie version of Dune Messiah will be. Dune Messiah and or Children of Dune. So There you go.
Again, par for the course for any book adaptation of a movie. Yeah. Or any movie adaptation of a book.